Hey, I'm Rachel, and today we're going to take a look at the innovative new needles, Addi FlexiFlips. All right, so here are all the key things you need to know about FlexiFlips. First off, these needles are a really unique double point and circular needle hybrid. Second, they are made from either nickel-plated brass or bamboo. And then last, they are great for small circumference projects that you knit in the round. All right, now let's take a closer look. All right, so let's take a look at the Addi FlexiFlips. So I've got one here, and they do come packaged 3 per tube, which is 6 needle tips, which is really awesome for working in the round. And you can see that they are, you know, about a 3-inch needle length, so a little shorter than you would normally see for a double-pointed needle, but because it's got this little bit of cord in between attaching them together, it actually ends up being quite a bit longer. And I found that I didn't have any trouble like holding onto the needle while I was working it. Like that bit of cord will hit your hand sort of over here while you're working with it. And I found that that was perfectly comfortable and didn't cause me any troubles at all. So one of the really neat things about these needles, the metal ones in particular, I'll show you the bamboo ones in just a second, but let's start with the metal ones here. The nickel plating means that they can do some really neat things with the tips. And what they've done is one side of the tip is your typical Addi Turbo. It's sharp and it's slick, but it's not super sharp. I would even go as far as say it's like one of the blunter metal tips out there, which is really nice if you're worried about splitting your yarn. You don't have to, this tip it allows you to knit fast without worrying about splitting your yarn too badly. And then if you turn it around here, this other tip is the Addi Rocket tip. And this you can see is a sharper tip. It's much more tapered and still that same nice slick nickel plated brass, but they are going to be a lot sharper. So really great for when you want to speed along with your knitting. So let me see if I can hold these up to the camera here so that you can kind of see. Kind of hard to see, but you can tell one of them is quite a bit sharper than the other. And really it's just a matter of personal preference. And when you're knitting along, which I'll show you in a minute on my project I've got down here, but when you're knitting along, the needle in your right hand is the one that you will want to, the needle you're knitting with, of course. So you just pick which end you like the best to knit off of. And I am definitely more of a rocket girl personally, so I will always be using the sharp side unless I hit a really splitty yarn or something like that. So that's the nickel-plated ones. Now let's take a look at the bamboo. And they do all come packaged in these neat little tubes. So if you end up kind of going crazy for these guys, you can have a whole collection of them and they'll fit like right into a box together. It's a nice packaging option. Okay, so here are the bamboo. Now, bamboo, of course, is a more fragile material, so you're not going to be able to have different tips with these guys. But they are your typical bamboo Addi tip. So they're very nice. They knit pretty quickly and they have a nice smooth surface for bamboo. So it's definitely a good one. And then of course it's got your flexible cord connecting them just like the nickel plated ones do. So if you are a bamboo needle lover and you also like to knit small things in the round, then these would be a good option for you as well. So let me just get these out of my way here. And I know it can be kind of weird to like wrap your brain around how a needle like this works with, you know, this little tiny bit of cord connecting in between. You can kind of see how it creates that bend right there. And that bend right there is kind of going to be key for allowing you to knit in the round. I kind of experimented with stitch placement on this sock that I'm working on. And what I ended up liking the best is I split the needles or the stitches in half essentially. So I've got half the stitches on this back needle and half the stitches on the front needle. Oops, I've got it backwards. Let me just, oh no I don't. Nope, we're good. Okay, so, but this is how it ends up being in the round. That little bend or not bend, but the cord allows it to bend so that you end up knitting in the round like that. So when you're getting ready to knit, you kind of scrunch up all the stitches like you normally would, but you don't have all that extra cord hanging around that you do for magic loop or with 2 circulars. And then of course you still kind of have a handful of needles like you do with double points, but rather than being in a triangular or rectangular shape, it's in the round, which is really nice, I think. So I'll just go ahead and start knitting just a little bit, but you can see I'm kind of holding one side straight across right there, and that's the needle I'm knitting off of. And then this back needle is forming a curve. So that's really, I mean, that's how they work, and that's, it's pretty simple actually. If you were to do a project like a hat, yeah, I think pretty much the same technique would work, and it would just be half and half your stitches. So just make sure you've got it, the patterning broken in a way that works properly across the stitches. You might have to do like, you know, 60-40 split or something like that rather than 50-50. But yeah, so that's how the FlexiFlips work. And then of course you pick your end when you start knitting. Like I've got the rocket end, like I said, because that's just my preference. But if you need or if you like the blunter end better, then you just would use the other end when you're knitting with the needle in your right hand. All right, so that is the FlexiFlips, all about them, how you use them. I would say the only other thing to know is make sure you check your gauge with these needles. I have found that because that nickel plating is so slippery, my gauge can actually be significantly looser with these needles than it is on other needles, because I think just because it's so slippery, I'm just not knitting as tightly as I normally would. So be sure and check your gauge if it's going to matter for your project. And yeah, just keep an eye on those tips when you're knitting, so you make sure you knit with the one that you like better, because that could also affect your gauge as well. Yeah, so that is the Addi FlexiFlips, both the bamboo and the nickel plated. All right, so that's everything you need to know about Addi FlexiFlips. I definitely recommend giving them a try if you like knitting in the round. They just might turn into your new favorite needle. I'm Rachel, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing, because we have a lot more yarn reviews, tutorials, and other fiber fun like that. Happy crafting!